There is a way of living a life so complete that you never really question if it is true. There is a way of standing next to someone every single day of your adult life, and never really seeing what is happening inside that person. There is a way of building something that looks perfect on the outside and never wondering what is crumbling on the inside. Steph Curry was living exactly this. It was a normal day in Oakland, California. Curry was in his house. That house that he and Ayesha had bought together. That house with their 4 children sleeping in rooms above it. Riley was 14 years old now. Ryan was 10. Cannon was 7. Caius was just 1 year old, still in that phase of being awake at strange hours of the night. Curry was in the living room, relaxed in his armchair, that armchair he sat in after exhausting days training with the Warriors. It was almost midnight. The house was quiet in that particular way that only houses with sleeping children can be. Quiet. It was a silence that sounded like peace. Curry breathed deeply and felt that relief that comes from finally being home. You can live for 13 years with someone, 13 years, and presume that you know everything about that person. You can be married since 2011, since that day in Charlotte, when he got down on one knee in the exact place where they had their first kiss, and presume that you know the heart of the person in front of you. You can raise 4 children with someone and presume that everything is fine. This is exactly what Curry had done with Ayesha. Their life looked perfect, not just for them, but for the whole world. NBA fans envied their relationship. Lifestyle magazines wrote about how Curry and Ayesha were the model couple of the NBA. When you searched the internet for successful athlete marriage, their photo appeared. When people talked about lasting relationships in the world of basketball, a world where marriages regularly crumbled under pressure, travel, infidelity, they pointed to Curry and Ayesha as an example. And they were correct. Their marriage was real. Their love was real. But real does not mean you see everything. Real does not mean you understand everything your wife is feeling. Real only means that it is true. And sometimes, the truth is much more complicated than you imagine. Curry had met Ayesha when they were both teenagers at a church in Charlotte, North Carolina. She was 14 years old. He was 15. He was the cute boy at church that all the girls wanted. She was Ayesha Alexander, smart, ambitious, with dreams that went beyond Charlotte. They did not start together immediately. It was not that thing of immediate destiny. It was friendship that transformed into something more as they grew up. When Curry went to Davidson College and then was drafted into the NBA, they reconnected in California. And in 2008, they started dating for real. 2 years later, Curry got down on one knee in the rain on the road to Ayesha's parents' house, that exact place where they had their first kiss. He proposed marriage, and she said yes, with a confidence that only very young and very in-love people can have. In 2011, they married in the same church in Charlotte where they met. They had a reception at Ballantine Resort. It was all as it should be, romantic, familiar, perfect. And then real life began. Curry went to the NBA in 2009. Ayesha was starting her career as an actress. She appeared in Hannah Montana, in TV shows. She was building something. But soon after the wedding, they discovered she was expecting. Riley was born quickly. So quickly that Curry barely had time to put on medical clothes to be there when his daughter came into the world. Then came Ryan. Then came Cannon. Then came Caius. While all this was happening, Curry was building a legacy. Curry was becoming a historically great player. In 2015, he won MVP. In 2016, he was the first unanimous player to win MVP. He received all 131 possible votes. All the votes. No one had done this before. And through all of this, Ayesha was there. Ayesha was witnessing this. Ayesha was raising children while Curry was building a legacy. But at some point, Ayesha had discovered that she could cook. Curry had suggested that she start a recipe blog. From a blog, it transformed into a book. From a book, it transformed into a TV show. From a TV show, it transformed into a meal kit delivery company. Ayesha Alexander Curry became a brand name. Ayesha Curry, influencer, entrepreneur, chef, and so, on the surface, it seemed like they were both succeeding. Both were building. Both were prospering. Curry presumed this was true. Curry presumed that when you build together, you are happy together. Curry presumed that when your partner is busy with their own projects, that this means they are satisfied. Curry presumed that when life seems to be flowing well, children are growing up, marriage seems stable, both have careers, that this means everything is fine. This is the presumption of a man who was too busy to question. That night in Oakland, Curry was in his armchair with his cell phone in his hand. He had finished training early. Ayesha was sleeping, or at least was in their room sleeping. The children were all sleeping in their rooms. Curry was just scrolling through his phone when he saw a notification. It was a new episode of a podcast that his fans were always mentioning. Call Her Daddy with Alexandra Cooper. And there was a new highlight. Ayesha Curry talks about marriage, motherhood, and sacrifice. Curry clicked. There was no reason not to click. Curry presumed it would be something light. Ayesha was probably promoting something new. It would probably be fun stuff, that kind of podcast conversation that lasts an hour and is basically well-dressed advertising. Curry put on his headphones. He started to listen, and he started to understand that his life was about to change in ways he could not have anticipated. Because the truth is this: you can live with someone. You can love someone. You can build an entire life with someone. And still, you never really see what is happening inside that person. The question is never, do you love your wife? The question is, do you really see your wife? And Curry was about to discover that the answer had been no the whole time. Curry began to listen. The podcast began with a typical introduction. Alexandra Cooper talking about how excited she was to have Ayesha Curry on that episode. Curry expected to hear Ayesha talk about her meal kit delivery company. Curry expected to hear Ayesha talk about new projects. Curry expected that light conversation that influencers have on popular podcasts. What Curry heard was something completely different. Alexandra Cooper. You talked on social media that you did not want marriage, that you had different plans for your life. Can you tell me more about this? And then Ayesha said the words that changed everything. Ayesha, I did not want children. I did not want to get married. I thought that I would be a career woman. I had my goals established. I had my professional targets. And then all this happened very quickly. Curry stopped. Curry was still in his armchair, but it was like that armchair had disappeared. It was like Curry had disappeared. The sound of Ayesha's voice coming from the headphones was the most real thing in the world at that moment. Curry knew Ayesha's voice. He knew every tone, every rhythm. But this was Ayesha being honest in a way Curry had never heard before. It was raw vulnerability. It was a confession that was not being made for Curry. It was being made for Alexandra Cooper and for millions of people listening to that podcast. Curry continued listening, continued walking. continued listening to Ayesha talk about therapy, about being in PD therapy. How long? Had she mentioned this? Curry tried to remember. Had she said she needed this? Ayesha continued talking. Alexandra asked more questions. Ayesha answered with honesty that was so clear, so present, that Curry could feel every emotion even through headphones and through the internet. Ayesha. After I got married, I got pregnant so fast. Like, I did not even have time to think about what I wanted. It was very fast. I spent my whole life working towards something, working on myself, working on my goals. And then all of that just disappeared. Her voice trembled a little bit when she said, disappeared. It was not drama. It was genuine processing of something that hurt her deeply. It was grieving for something that she had sacrificed. Curry had never heard Ayesha speak this way, had never heard his wife admit that something had disappeared, had never heard her express this with such honesty. Alexandra. And you never regretted it? Never said, I want that life back? Ayesha, I would say that after my daughter turned 1 year old, there was like a shift in me. I was like, wait, I have goals for myself. This does not feel right. I love being a mother, but I love doing other things too. I love my family, but there is this part of me that is like incomplete. Curry heard this and felt something breaking inside his chest. It was not anger yet. It was confusion. It was the realization that there was something happening with his wife that he did not know about. There was a journey that Ayesha was on alone. Alexandra. And your husband? How did he react when you started to feel this? Ayesha took a deep breath. And when she answered, Curry heard every word as if it was being said directly to his heart. Ayesha. He tried to understand. But it was hard for him to understand how I felt. Because he was so focused on his career, so focused on his success, that when I tried to explain this to him, he could not see it even when I was explaining. Curry sat up straighter in his armchair. This was not casual presumption about Ayesha being in therapy. This was Ayesha criticizing him. This was Ayesha saying publicly to millions of people that he had not understood, that he was too focused on his own career, that he had not heard her even when she had tried to tell him. Alexandra. And are you working on this now? Ayesha. Yes, I am in therapy. I am processing a lot of things. I am trying to understand who I am as an individual beyond being a mother and a wife. I am trying to find parts of myself that I felt I lost. And he is trying to understand now. He loves me very much. He is working on understanding my perspective. But yes, it is a process. Curry took off his headphones, got up from his armchair, started walking through the living room in the darkness, only the light from his cell phone illuminating his face. You can feel when the world changes. You can feel when information arrives that redefines everything you thought you knew. It is a physical sensation, like gravity has changed, like you are walking in a completely different direction. Curry was walking, cell phone still in his hand, podcast still playing in that headphone that now seemed dangerous, seemed revelatory, seemed like a tool that his world was using against him. Because this was the worst part. It was not that Ayesha was dissatisfied. This was just the truth of a relationship. This was just honesty. The worst part was that Ayesha had told Alexandra Cooper before telling him. That Ayesha had allowed millions of people to know about her dissatisfaction. That Curry was finding out about his own wife's dissatisfaction because he had listened to a podcast. This was humiliation. This was exclusion. This was being the last to know. Curry left the house, walked outside into the Oakland night. It was cold. It was dark. It was quiet in that way that only sleeping cities can be quiet. And Curry started to cry. Not from anger. Not yet. It was crying from confusion. It was crying from the realization that he had failed to listen. It was crying of a man who is discovering that his wife was suffering and he did not know. But along with this came something else. It came anger. It came indignation. Because while Curry was finding out about this now, at this moment, there were millions of people who already knew. Fans of his who heard Ayesha's podcast, friends who had heard it, NBA commentators who probably had heard it. Everyone knew about Ayesha's dissatisfaction with their marriage before Curry knew. Curry took a deep breath in the cold night, breathed the air of Oakland that was so familiar but had never felt so alien. And he did something he had not done in many years as an adult man in a stable marriage. He decided that he needed answers, and that these answers needed to come from Ayesha. Personally. Today. Curry came back into the house still with anger burning underneath his skin. It was anger that came from humiliation. It was anger that came from brutal discovery. It was anger that came from the realization that he had been sleeping while his marriage was being discussed on a podcast for millions of people. Ayesha was in the kitchen. She was preparing something. Early breakfast, Curry noticed. She had that way of being in the kitchen when the children were still sleeping. It was her sacred time. It was when she cooked not to feed the family, but to express herself. Ayesha looked at Curry when he came in. Her expression changed immediately. Ayesha. Hi, love. You came back early. Is everything okay? Curry looked at his wife. Looked at that woman with whom he had spent 13 years building a life. Looked at that woman who had chosen to marry him when they were both young, and Curry felt something breaking inside him. Curry, you were on a podcast talking about not wanting to marry me? Ayesha paused. The spoon she was holding stopped in midair. Ayesha. Steph, Curry. No, let me speak. You were on a podcast talking about sacrificing your career. You were talking about how I did not understand you. You were telling Alexandra Cooper before telling me? Ayesha. I did not tell Alexandra. She asked, and I... Curry. You answered. And do you know how many people heard? Do you know how many millions of people now know that you are dissatisfied with our marriage? Curry started to walk, started to circle the kitchen like a caged animal. Curry. Do you know how many of my friends called? How many saying, hey, we saw Ayesha on the podcast. Is everything okay at home? Do you know how many people know more about my marriage than I do? Ayesha started to cry. Tears started to fall without her being able to control them. Ayesha. I was not trying to humiliate you. Curry. But that is what you did. You humiliated me. You made me look like what kind of man does not listen to his wife. What kind of husband is so focused on himself that his wife has to tell her problems to a podcast instead of telling him? Curry's voice was loud now. He was not yelling. It was above normal conversation. It was the tone of a man who was genuinely hurt. Curry. And therapy? You are in therapy? How long? Ayesha, between tears. 2 years? Curry. 2 years? You have been in therapy for 2 years processing our marriage, and you never mentioned this to me? Ayesha. Because Curry. Because what, Ayesha? Because you did not trust me? Because you preferred to trust a therapist than your own husband? Because you wanted the world to know before your husband knew? Curry sat down in the kitchen chair, sat down like a man whose legs could no longer keep him upright. Curry, and you know what hurts the most? It is that you could have come to me. You could have sat at that table and said, Steph, I am processing things. I am feeling dissatisfied. I need space. You could have been honest with me. Curry looked at Ayesha. There were tears in his own eyes now. Curry, but instead, you went to a therapist. You went to a podcast. You went to your friends. And I am here thinking everything is fine. I am here building a career, raising children, being father to your children, and you are like processing resentment towards me. Ayesha, I am not resentful towards you. I love you. Curry, if you love me, why did you show this to Alexandra Cooper before showing it to me? The silence in the kitchen was heavy. It was a silence that seemed to last forever. Ayesha was crying without making a sound, tears just running down her face. Curry was breathing deeply, trying to control the anger that was burning through his body. Ayesha finally spoke. Her voice was small. It was the voice of a woman who was feeling completely vulnerable. Ayesha, because I was afraid, Steph. Curry looked at her. Ayesha, I was afraid of hurting you. I was afraid that you would not understand. I was afraid that you would be angry, that you would feel attacked. And you are angry. You are feeling attacked. So I was right to be afraid of telling you. Curry felt something in his chest tighten. It tightened because she was right, but also because it meant that his presence, his very being, was so threatening that she could not be honest with him. Curry, so you went to tell Alexandra Cooper? Ayesha. She asked, and I just told the truth. And it was liberating to be honest. And I could not be honest with you because I was afraid of your reaction. Those words hurt Curry in a way that anger could not compare. Ayesha continued, still crying. Ayesha, do you think it is easy to be married to someone who is at the top of the world? Do you think it is easy to be raising children while your husband is winning MVP and breaking records? Do you think it is easy to find your own identity when everything around you is about you? Curry did not answer, could not, because there was truth in what she was saying too. Ayesha, I love you. I love you so much. But I also need myself. And for a long time, I did not have myself. I had Curry's wife. I had mother of the children. I had an influencer who cooks, but I did not have Ayesha. Curry felt tears start to fall. It was not tears from anger now. It was tears of someone who was starting to understand that he had failed to see his wife, had failed to create space for her to be a whole person. Curry, so you are leaving? Do you want a divorce? Ayesha, no, I do not want to leave. I want to be here. But I also want you to see me, to really see me, not as your wife, not as the mother of your children, as Ayesha, as a woman who sacrificed things and who is trying to find a way to live with this. Curry and Ayesha stood in silence. The kitchen that had been a place of Ayesha's expression had transformed into a place of painful truth. The entire house seemed to be holding its breath. Curry finally spoke. His voice was small now, too. Curry, I need air. Curry got up, walked into the living room, went up the stairs quietly, careful not to wake the children, went into the guest room, closed the door, and sat down on the guest bed in that room that had never been his. but that was becoming his that night. Curry did not know how to move forward. Curry did not know how to be the man that Ayesha needed him to be. Curry did not know how to see his wife when he had been so blind for so long. And in the kitchen, Ayesha continued to cry, not from relief, but from the weight of finally having told the truth, and not knowing if it had destroyed everything or if it had saved it. Curry slept in the guest room that night. Sleep was not the right word. He was awake processing everything Ayesha had said, processing everything he had said, processing the reality that he had failed to see his own wife. The next morning, Curry went to train with the Warriors, went to his brother Seth's house afterwards. Seth lived a few miles from Curry, close enough for support, far enough for privacy. Seth had played in the NBA too. Seth understood pressure, understood relationships under the public eye, understood the dynamics of marriage with a celebrity. Curry came into Seth's house without knocking. Seth was in the kitchen preparing a smoothie, his post-training routine. Seth: "Hey, Steph, you good?" Curry sat down on the kitchen counter. Curry: "Did you hear Ayesha's podcast?" Seth paused. He knew this was not a casual question. Seth: "Yeah, I saw it was released. Haven't heard it completely yet, but..." Curry: "She was saying she did not want to marry me, that she sacrificed her career, that I did not understand how she felt." Seth put down the smoothie, turned completely to his brother. Seth: "And you are angry because she was dissatisfied? Or are you angry because you found out listening to a podcast?" The question was simple, but cutting. Curry did not answer immediately. Because the truth was, Curry was angry for both reasons, but he was more angry for the second. Curry: "Both. She should have told me." Seth: "And did she try to tell you?" Curry: "No, not that I..." Seth: "You sure? Because from what I hear, Ayesha has been trying to tell you for years. But you were too focused on your career, on basketball, on finances. You were in your own world." Seth picked up his smoothie again. Seth: "The question is not that Ayesha is dissatisfied, Steph. The question is, why did you create an environment where she could not trust to tell you? Why did your wife feel so threatened by your reaction that she preferred to process this with a therapist before processing it with her husband?" Curry felt this like a punch to the stomach, because Seth was right. Curry spent the rest of that day at Seth's house. He heard the full podcast. This time, he was not listening to find offenses. He was listening to understand. He was listening to hear Ayesha, really hear her. And when he heard it, he understood that. Ayesha did not hate him. Ayesha loved him. But Ayesha was also processing real sacrifice. Ayesha had given up her career when she was young. Ayesha had left Hollywood behind. Ayesha had put personal ambitions on pause when she married so quickly. This was not Curry's fault. This was just the reality of a choice she had made. But it was a reality that she was processing. And when she tried to process this with Curry, Curry responded with defensiveness or with solutions. "If you want a career, go build one. If you want time, I will give you space." But that was not what Ayesha needed to hear. She needed to hear that it was okay to be dissatisfied while still loving her marriage. That it was okay to question choices while still committed. Curry needed to listen without solving. Listen without defending. Curry came back home at dusk. Ayesha was in the kitchen again. She was cooking for the family. She had that place of expressing herself that had been a place of confrontation the night before. Curry came in quietly. Ayesha sensed his presence. She turned around. "Curry, I am sorry. Ayesha started crying immediately. It was not a cry of relief. It was a cry of tension that was finally being released. Curry, you were right. I was selfish. My anger was about me, not about you or your well-being. Ayesha. Steph. Curry. Let me speak. I was angry that I found out on a podcast. But the truth is that I should have created space for you to tell me first. You tried to tell me, and I did not listen. Or I listened, but did not hear. I am not sure of the difference, but there is a difference, and I want to start listening. Ayesha was trembling now, trembling from relief and from anxiety. Curry continued, Curry, I did not see you, and you deserve to be seen. As a whole person, as a woman with ambitions, as someone who sacrificed things and who is processing this, you deserved this, and I am here now. I want to be here now. Ayesha, what do you mean, you want to be here now? Curry, it means that you want to continue in individual therapy? Great. I completely support that. You want couples therapy too? Let us do it. Together. You want more time for your personal ambitions? Let us reorganize. Let us find a way to make this work. Curry took a deep breath. Curry, you want to talk about this publicly? Let us talk. But let us talk together. With honesty. Because you were right. You deserve to be able to be honest without fear of my reaction. And I want to be the man that you can be honest with. Ayesha walked to Curry and hugged him. It was not a hug that resolved everything. It was not a hug that said, everything is fine. It was a hug that said, we start again. We start more honest. Days later, Curry and Ayesha had their first couples therapy session. Their therapist worked on communication, worked on Curry learning to listen without defensiveness, worked on Ayesha learning that it was safe to be vulnerable with her husband. It was not quick. It was not easy. 8. Relationship is not built in one conversation or in one therapy session. But it started. Weeks later, Curry was at Oracle Arena during a game. He was on the court warming up before the game began. He was thinking about Ayesha. He was thinking about how much he loved her. He was thinking about how much he wanted to be the man that she needed him to be. Curry made his three-point shot. That shot that had broken records. That shot that had defined him as a player. And when the shot went in, Curry did something he had done thousands of times. He pointed to the sky. But this time, it was not an automatic gesture. This time, Curry was thinking about Ayesha. Curry was thinking about the woman who had been honest with herself and with the world. Curry was thinking about the wife who had found the courage to speak the truth, even knowing that it would hurt someone she loved. Because this is what real marriage is. It is not when everything is perfect. Real marriage is when you discover uncomfortable truth, and you choose to love more, not less. You choose to understand instead of defend. Real marriage is work. It is vulnerability. It is being willing to be seen completely and still be loved completely. Curry chose this. Ayesha chose this. And according to their choices, they began to rebuild their relationship on a foundation of honesty instead of illusion. It was not the ending of a fairy tale. It was not a moment where everything was resolved. It was simply a man who finally began to see his wife. It was a woman who finally felt seen. And it was a couple that chose to fight not against each other, but together with each other. This was what they called real love. It was not perfection. It was genuine presence. It was brutal honesty. It was a daily choice to be there. And in that arena in Oakland, when the ball went into the basket and the crowd cheered, Curry was thinking about Ayesha, about the woman who had been brave enough to speak the truth, about the man who had been mature enough to listen. Because the real MVP, the real success, was not in arenas. It was at home. It was in the kitchen. It was in therapy. It was in vulnerable moments where two people decide that love means seeing each other completely and loving anyway.